welcome everybody to this Tuesday edition of the Streakers Island Podcast. It is I, Jacob Moore, the self-proclaimed sports analyst. Now, one thing that absolutely terrified me, as soon as I hit the intro, I saw Chazzy run away. But I think he was just so excited about the episode that he had to get his steps in and burn off some energy before we're going to talk about all this sports. So, of course, we have Chazzy who puts this capital C and the capital E and the capital O in the CEO. He has taken away the update off his name. We are not sure what version of Chazzy we're going to get. Is it 5.0? Is he up to 10? Did he downgrade so we can fit in his firmware? Who the heck knows? We also have Mr. More Free Money.
Woo!
That's pathetic. I give you a big war. You
Okay.
go,
Woo!
And of course, we have the one, the only Lade Dashig Dashco. Love the Wendell Clark goatee.
I just bring the good looks, and that's what I'm here for. Just a pleasant face to look at. But
Either that or maybe we all have a face for radio. Who knows? But
if you're on Spotify, at least you can listen to my soothing voice.
exactly.
Nazzy definitely has to face the
If
TV.
you go to sleep, you don't need to put on a YouTube channel. Just listen to calm, relaxing vibes from Dad.
Until Dan starts yelling about Joseph Wool. But we have a very, very full show today, everyone. We're going to go over the NHL playoffs, which include the Oilers taking a 2-1 series lead, Carolina Hurricanes staying alive, but for how long? I also want to talk about Mitch Marner being compared to a Calgary Flame. Or the CFL preseason is underway, and the Calgary Stampeders show they mean business. CHL Memorial Cup is in the thick of it, and it looks like we're going to have a real hot game tonight. We have the NBA playoffs, Blue Jays struggles, and so much more. But for anyone who follows the Streakers Gaming page, as much as the podcast is Barrels of Fun, we have an awesome app that we are powered by called Streakers. And the Streakers Gaming team was at CSCS in Bowmanville, which is near Oshawa, which is in Ontario, and Ontario is in Canada. Just so all our viewers know, we have we have a viewer from Brazil, so maybe they don't know where Bowmanville is.
Really? Wow, that's cool.
And we have you might have been wondering why we were posting a bunch of car stuff. Dan and I each did a walk around on a vehicle. It wasn't just because my Grand Prix got lower and I want to show it off. We have a really big announcement. So instead of Dan ranting for 6 minutes about Joseph Wool, he is going to take a minute and a half to tell you the big news with Streakers Gaming, Curfest, and Wheels Direct.
Hey everyone, Dan Moore, More for Your Money, here at CSCS 23rd Anniversary First Round for 2025 with Streakers Gaming, Wheels Direct, and that's right, you see our new mic, Curfest. It's making a comeback for 2025 in an all-new way. You've been listening to the Streakers Island podcast. Jacob's been talking big surprise with 4 wheels, an engine, and a heartbeat. And if people know my automotive background, how retired with sports and streakers, well, here's the big news. For 2025, we're having a series of 1v1 special events at Wheels Direct. That's right, the Streakers app is for judges and is powering up Curfest when you are the judge. That's right, you judge on the app digitally which cars you like the best. And the best will be at the big main event at the end of the season at Wheels Direct. So stay tuned to all our social medias with Curfest, Streakers Gaming, Streakers Podcast, Wheels Direct, you name it, follow all of us, and stay tuned for special events, for 1v1 events, and download the Streaker app so that you can vote for your favorite 1v1 cars today. Woo!
Love seeing John's big old thumb telling everyone to give it a like-o for what is going on. But that is right, as Dan explained better than anyone else physically could. Like, I mean, you could have Bill Nye the Science Guy, and he would not be able to explain it to everyone as well as Mr. More Free Money did. So we are teaming up with Curse Fest and Wheels Direct to put on a show of a lifetime. Remember, we always said Streakers can do more. The Streakers Island podcast is changing the game. Well, we have just changed it even more. But make sure you follow all the social medias to see what's going on there. But let's get back into the NHL playoffs here. And Edmonton Oilers take a 2-1 series lead, and it looks like Lane may have projected what's happening in that Oilers series. Lane, I know you talked about it in a previous episode about how one team may run away with it. And at first, after game one in that third period, it looked like it was going to be Dallas.
And he even said Dallas.
Connor McDavid said, hold my non-alcoholic beverage while I'm on the Streakers Island podcast. And he has really led the charge with this team. But, Lane, do you see Edmonton just running away with this now, or do you still think Dallas has some fight?
I don't know. I really thought that last game, especially the one on the weekend there, like it was a close game going into the third period, and it just felt like the Oilers just kind of powered up. Like you said, Connor McDavid, we talked about him being kind of quiet and not like quiet in sense, but not really leading the charge. And he's really decided to, especially in these last few games, really pick it up. And that's a scary thing for the Oilers because now they've got the depth scoring and they've got McDavid going all at once. And the good thing is Skinner's finding his game. So now what do? Now you got Stuart Skinner who's on a hot streak. You got McDavid and Draisaitl figuring it out. You got the depth putting it in. It's going to be tough for Dallas. And, I looked at how Dallas played, and I really think that Ottinger, for anyone who gives credit to Stuart Skinner for not being up, I think Jake Ottinger has to play way better. He makes more money. He's supposed to be the better goalie, and he has not been the better goalie as the last two games. I think Dallas absolutely needs to win the next one, or Edmonton, I think, will absolutely run away with it in 5.
You know what, Lane? I really agree with you when you talk about how Ottinger just has to be better. And I didn't see enough from Ottinger the last game. I mean, I don't care at that. And the coach really did defend him. I think you have to at this point because there's no way in HE double hockey sticks you're putting Casey DeSmith in the Western Conference Finals. But you're paying Ottinger to be a franchise goaltender, right? And this is the big difference I've talked about between franchise goalies, good goalies, and mediocre goalies. I would put Stuart Skinner in that mediocre category. Meanwhile, when he wins, he allows a goal or less in every single game he wins. If you look at the stats between the games he wins and the games that he loses, it is absolutely insane, the difference. But I don't know. I just think that also, too, I think you could be seeing more from Dallas's, some of their other guys. And Dan, you mentioned it as well, that to be off camera, that you feel Dallas is star players. I get it. Dallas star players, stars are not doing enough.
Stars! Yeah, I mean, you look at the first round when Rantanen just dominated Colorado, which was amazing to see against his old team. And he even dominated first couple games in Winnipeg. Then in Winnipeg really figured out how to shut him down. Well, I guess the Oilers have bought the tapes off the Winnipeg Jets and studied them like crazy, and they figured out how to shut down Rantanen. And not just Rantanen. You look at Michael Granlund. He was a big trade that they did before the trade deadline. He had a big game, but besides that, he's been kind of quiet too. Then you got the injury of Wolpe Hintz. I think I said his name correctly. So you need guys like Matt Duchene, Tyler Seguin in the middle, stepping up. Wyatt Johnson stepping up. And yeah, we always talk about Dallas and their big guns and their deepness and all that. And they haven't really done what I think they haven't compared to like McDavid and Draisaitl with series. Even coming into his series, Rantanen was number one in points for the NHL. And if I'm not mistaken, let me triple check here. I am pretty sure Connor McDavid.
I'm pretty sure it is McDavid.
Yeah, he did. Connor McDavid passed him with 22. Rantanen's still stuck at 21 because McDavid had, 3 points the other night? So we're starting to see a shift here. So if is Rantanen worth $12 million if he can dominate in the first round and not do anything in the finals? I don't know. To Maple Leaf fans, he might be. But to everyone else, you guys are the judge.
No, I do want to quickly point out, speaking of Leaf fans, William Nylander is still currently tied for 5th in playoff points, which is crazy to me that we've had a whole other round and he's still hanging around on the top 5.
Yeah.
Interesting enough, the top 5 actually has Nylander and Kyle Connor, who are both did not make it into this round whatsoever. But I think the big difference is here, and you talk about the stars of the of Dallas not stepping up. And this does bring up the point to me on hints that, Dan, you brought up. And I remember half you guys said you thought he was faking.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you can say he's faking now, considering he missed game 3. And it's interesting, too. People talk about the Canadian disfavoritism. But at the same time, well, I mean, that probably should have been a suspension. If you look at the ruling, if there's a slash that causes injury where the player has to leave, it is supposed to be an automatic 5-minute major in a game misconduct. Now, we have learned in these playoffs that the rule book makes about as much sense as, the Dr. Seuss if I ran the circus, right? Like, no,
Dr. Seuss is a good offer. What do you mean it doesn't make sense?
The rules don't apply. I think of the Fairly Odd Parents show where Timmy Turner breaks every single rule, but he keeps his fairy godparents. I feel like that is Gary Bettman when it comes to when players should be suspended and when they shouldn't be in the NHL playoffs.
Well, it's not Gary Bettman makes that decision. It's Joe Parros.
Okay, that is like saying it's not the manager who chooses something, it's the janitor. No, it's the manager. Yeah, yes, Parros is the one that's quote-unquote the job, but Gary Bettman could say to him, hey, I'm your boss. You're being an idiot. Change your ruling. So at the end of the day, I still put this all on the commissioner. You know what? You got to blame the big boss, right? If something goes wrong in the podcast, I get blamed because I'm the producer. Doesn't matter if I have a tornado hit the building, it would still be my fault. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. And I think for the exact same thing with some of these suspensions. But Craig, I have been really on Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, as you know, and you've kind of been telling me to take a chill pill, maybe read the circus book for myself. And you know what? I do deserve the circus book for my take that I felt McDavid wasn't doing enough, because in that last game, we really stepped up. So do you think we're just seeing the start of the McDavid Draisaitl takeover?
I think you've seen it all playoffs. I think you've seen it all year, and I think you'll continue to see it more dominant as we go into game 4 here tonight. I think the Oilers, mind you, Dallas had a lot of shots in that last game, especially that second period. But Skinner plays the way he did, and you'll continue to see the leadership, and it starts in the locker room. So I think you've seen it all playoffs, and they're just shining now because now they're playing Dallas.
Hey, that is a great point too. You mentioned Stuart Skinner, and Stuart Skinner has now had the 6th best goals against average out of all goalies in the playoffs. Mind you, he has the worst goals against average of any goalie that is left. But I mean, what Stuart Skinner's been able to do, he's either amazing or terrible. Now, when he's been amazing, he faced 21 shots in that second period against Dallas, and he shut the door. If you have a mediocre performance in that game, you're not in it. Now, Edmonton could be potentially losing some players and gaining some players. You have Connor Brown, which is speculated to be out, but Calvin Pickard and Matthias Ekholm may be back. Tell you one thing, you are not pulling Stuart Skinner from the net right now, even if Calvin Pickard is back.
Well, let me finish. If Stuart Skinner keeps playing this good, I agree. Got to keep it in. However, I think Stuart Skinner still has a bad game in him, and I think it's still a possibility we could see Pickard. Hopefully, I'm wrong for Stuart Skinner's case. But he's been playing amazing. Maybe we'll see this all the way up to the Stanley Cup Finals. But Pickard is back healthy, and I think Stuart Skinner still has a bad game in him.
You know what, though? Stuart Skinner, once he gets going in the playoffs, he usually seems to play, besides that one year when it was him and Campbell, which I think that was just bad juju overall. Both of those goalies just completely fell off that year. But, I mean, besides of that, normally you see solid goaltending. However, if Ekholm is back, the big question is, okay, but where? Right? You have Brett Kulak and Evan Bouchard that have been playing surprisingly very well together. Then Troy Stetcher and Darnell Nurse. I mean, I'm not the biggest Darnell Nurse fan. I'm just going to keep it a buck. I feel he's not as good as a defenseman as his paycheck, but at the end of the day, you're not going to scratch him. And Troy Stetcher has been playing very well.
Mm-hmm.
But then you got Wallman and Klingberg. And Lane, you've never been the biggest Klingberg fan. So is that the guy you're pulling?
Actually, I got a different approach.
What?
And I think you run 7D. I actually do. I think you run
Especially
7D.
with Brown out, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, you run 7D, 11 forwards. And the good thing about Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl is they are so good on the ice that you can like double shift them on some fourth line shifts. And with Connor Brown out, there's no need to force a forward in there that you haven't really played or, that's sitting on the bench right there. You can run 7D, bring in Ekholm. He plays on those shutdown lines. He'll help out the lines at then. And then you have like your other guys like Klingberg, who will help on the offensive side. So I think if you're the coach right now, you look and see, well, if Connor Brown's out, we could bring in a guy like Ekholm if he's ready to go, run that 70-11 forward. And another point I want to bring out is, and again, not been confirmed, but something that scares me is Mikko Rantanen. I know we talked about him a little bit, and I know someone had brought it up, Mr. Dan Gray, on the show before, and after seeing on the weekend, I think he's nursing a little bit of an injury.
Then he should call Darnell nurse.
I really do. I honestly,
because he has not looked the same since that Winnipeg series.
I think he's taking the Austin Matthews excuse.
Oh, give me a break. Cry me a fans.
I don't know what it is in that game on the weekend. But I don't know if it was he had to get up early. He didn't get his eggs Benedict, but his speed was brutal. I was shocked how slow he was, and I was like, this does not look like something seems off with Mikko Rantanen. Again, I could be wrong. Maybe he just had a bad game. Maybe he's just been off. But I've noticed, especially in these last few games, just seems like we're not seeing the same Mikko Rantanen we saw in those first two rounds.
But I mean, even you say the first two rounds, it took him a while to get going, right? And Winnipeg, I felt, did a phenomenal job at really shutting down Rantanen. Now, did they hurt him? Luke Shen threw a couple monster hits at Mikko Rantanen in Game 5 and Game 6.
He did.
And you do wonder, is that the reason? I'm also going to point out, with Hintz out, that top line just got a lot worse with Oscar Beck centering it, which that is the very last place I would have put him if I'm Dallas. Yeah. I have no idea why, when you have Tyler Seguin, Wyatt Johnson, Matt Duchene, you're like, let's put this fourth line kid up on the top line. I don't understand that decision whatsoever, especially when realistically none of your lines have been going this series. It's not like the other lines have been going and you don't want to split them up. Let's be honest, Dallas is extremely underperforming right now. And if they lose to the Oilers again, there is absolutely no way in hell this team comes back the way it is next year. We talk about how the Leafs are such a disappointment. I think they say everything's bigger in Texas, including the third round flops if you're the Dallas Stars. This is a series that realistically you won Game 1. That third period, you absolutely dominated. And then you've fallen apart ever since. Dallas has won. Okay, you could argue 2 periods in the last 3 games because that second period, they outplayed Edmonton. It's just Stuart Skinner stood on his head, which is a sentence I didn't think I'd say unless I said he fell on the bench and decided to do a spin on his head. This has been an absolute joke for the Dallas Stars, and they absolutely have to be better.
Well, I think that now, Jacob, I don't like that analogy that they didn't play. Again, I don't understand why the goalie's not a part of the team. Like, I hate when someone's like, well, you outplayed them except for the goalie. Excuse me, what does the goalie not play for another team?
Exactly.
No, you didn't outplay them.
I agree with Mr. Dasco.
No, you didn't outplay them. I disagree with that statement. You didn't outplay them. You maybe the goalie is a part of it unless he plays for another team and was just happens to bring a jersey he's a fan that goes to all 32 arenas and happens to bring every jersey with him. No, he's a part of the team. You didn't outplay them because you didn't beat them. At the end of the day, Stuart Skinner, even if he had to stand on his head, he still was the best of you.
Yeah.
And I kind of get where you're coming from there, Lane. I just feel like in that second period, when you dominate the shot total, you dominate the time of possession, you got goalied, which I do agree the goalie is part of the team. But like when you look at, this might sound weird, but when you look at the Toronto Maple Leafs playoff victories when Joseph Woll got a shutout, the Leafs blocked more shots than Joseph Woll made saves. That was not the case in that Edmonton-Dallas game. It was really... Yes, it is a team effort, and obviously you scored 6 goals, so the team did something right. I just mean for Dallas, I kind of break down a game into who won the game and who won periods to try to build for the future. And I would say Dallas has only really controlled 2 periods in the last 3 games.
That's
so
true.
I think for the Stars, I'm very worried because if you lose the next game, you're down 3-1. I don't see Edmonton losing 3 straight games, even if you lose Connor Brown. And no disrespect to Connor Brown, I love the man. He would be the best man at my wedding if I'm getting married, but he is not. Okay, maybe Lane, you and Connor Brown can share. Sharing is caring.
What about me?
Dan, you would not want to be a best man at a wedding.
I'm your brother.
Would you actually, Dan? A best man has a lot of pre-planning they have to do.
Nah, I don't want it.
Exactly. But I do want to
ask up your best man, Chazzy.
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah.
See, one of them. That's because Chazzy knows to throw off the right bachelor party, you need a whole planning committee. But speaking of the planning committee, is it time for the planning committee in Carolina to start planning the parade again? They did get a big win in Game 4. Do I think they're coming back in this series? I think it'd be hilarious because the way Florida ripped on Boston for the way they came back against, it would be hilarious if Carolina did it. I don't see it happening personally because you barely beat Florida in Game 4. A win is a win. And I do like the response from Carolina after Rod Brendamore just bluntly said, we suck.
Yeah.
And mind you, I think Brendamore, unfortunately, his time may be running out in Carolina. You can't keep getting this far and failing this spectacularly. But they did finally get a win in the Eastern Finals. Statistically speaking, you're not going to lose that many games in a row. But even if Anderson, getting a shutout with 20 saves, do any of you feel Carolina has a chance in this series right now? Give me a percentage number. So Lane is saying a big 0. Chazzy, what's your percentile?
Let's say a 5% chance.
5%.
That's a lot.
Mr. Moore for your money.
20%.
What?
I did say the series is going to go 6 games. I do think Carolina should be able to win one more game at home. Game 5 is the next game in Carolina. I think we'll win that game, and then I think Florida will wrap it up in Game 6. That's my predictions.
So you guys are going to think I'm crazy. If Carolina wins Game 5, I think the series goes 7. If Carolina wins Game 5, they'll have back-to-back wins. They'll have a lot of momentum. And I think they're starting to play the game the way they want to play it. They outshot Florida 28-20. Their penalty kill was perfect. They were out hit by Florida, but that's to be expected. They got more takeaways and even giveaways. So if I'm Florida and you won the time of possession in this game, Carolina won the time of possession. So if I'm Carolina, you finally played your game for 60 minutes and you won. You did to Florida what you did to Washington and what you did to New Jersey. And you have to remember, they went on pretty big winning streaks in those series as well. I think Carolina, I'm not saying they're going to win this series. I'll be honest. I don't see Florida losing 4 straight, but I do see Carolina pushing Florida a lot further than anyone expected. The bubble has finally burst. You won an Eastern Conference Finals game. So you have to feel like now we've won 1. Why can't we win 3 more? And there's going to be more belief in that room. There is more belief than cord length that Dan is pulling to charge his iPhone that is probably at 2%.
No, it's not at 2%, but I want to make sure it doesn't get that low.
Preventative maintenance. Preventive maintenance auto is not sponsored by Streakers, but if they could be, I don't know if that's a shop, but I feel like that should be a name of a shop.
Yeah, as I said.
I think I need to get on Amazon and buy a circus book for myself.
Okay, but let's get into some of the games coming up, right? We have a big Game 4 tonight between the Edmonton Oilers and the Dallas Stars. So I want to go around the room, and I am going to start with Chazzy. Who wins tonight?
Edmonton. But did you know Dallas is the most hit team in these 2025 playoffs?
That's so surprising.
I did not know that. I'm actually kind of surprised about that because I honestly thought it would have been Carolina. The way they control the puck as much as they do, I would have thought they were a team that got hit the most. But that is very surprising about Dallas. So, Dan, who do you see winning this game? Is Edmonton going to take a stranglehold, or is Dallas going to get back in the series?
I think Edmonton's going to take a stranglehold and win the game in Edmonton to make it 3-1. However, Dallas is too good of a team to count out of the series. And I do think Skinner is going to have a bad game. I think Edmonton's going to win game 4. I think Skinner's going to play well. Then I think in Dallas, Dallas will win game 5 and Skinner will fall apart. I think this series could still go 7.
So, Lane, I'm going to let you go last. But for me...
Well, there's no one else left, Jacob.
Well, there's me.
Oh, wait, okay.
So apparently I don't exist. So because of that, Dan's not allowed to be on the screen while I talk. When I look at this series, it has been kind of back and forth. I think Dallas is really going to respond after that absolute collapse. I want Edmonton to win game 4, but I think Dallas will win game 4. I know we talked about earlier how potentially one team could run away. I just think this Dallas team is too good to not respond. Even the Toronto Maple Leafs that we make fun of and ridicule. Chazzy loves laughing at the Leafs so much. When we did the post game after they got eliminated, he had a big bowl of popcorn just to enjoy the moment. But I really feel Dallas is too good of a team to not respond, and they are going to play some very, very good hockey. But Lane, the floor is yours. Who takes game 4?
I'm sticking with my prediction. I think it's going to be the Edmonton Oilers. I just think that now that McDavid and Draisaitl are back in it and they've kind of reasserted themselves and been like, allow me to reintroduce myself. And now they're back in this series, and that's what you didn't want. You didn't want McDavid to be like, well, I'm done being bored and not playing. I'm going to get back in it. And now that McDavid is chipping in with Draisaitl, I think they're just going to take over and win it. I just think this Oilers team is so motivated after what happened last year, how they got this close to coming to the Cup final. We've seen it this whole road, right? This has been a motivated group. Like, everyone's bought in, everyone's chipping in, left, right, center. Every player's buying in. All the bench guys are buying in. The goalies are buying in. I think this team's motivated to win. I think they're going to put Dallas in the stranglehold, take them back to Dallas. Maybe it gets one more game, but I don't know. I could see them just being like, we're punching our ticket to the finals. See you later.
Why?
I will say, if Edmonton wins game 4, I think the series will be done in 5. I think if Dallas goes down 3-1, I could see them just rolling over.
Interesting.
But I don't think that'll happen. But now I want to get to the props. And getting into the custom props, I am not going to give you guys any of my answers on this one, because I want you guys to make sure you get in the Streakers app so you can find out my true answers. Because screw you. That's why. That way I don't have to decide my answers yet either. I can think about it overnight. I can have a coffee. I can do whatever the heck I please. So, Chazzy, this one's for you. Will Connor McDavid get 2 points?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, that was aggressive. Okay. Mr. Moore, for your money.
Yes, sir.
You seem to think Stuart Skinner is going to struggle this game, even though you think Edmonton is going to win. So I guess you're picturing an 8-7 barn burner. But even an 8-7 barn burner, will Stuart Skinner be able to manage to make 23 saves?
No, I don't think so.
Well, that was just kind of mean. So, Lane, this one's for you, but not for Real Big Fish who wants to know about all the suckers who still believe in love. Probably most of you guys don't know that song, but that's okay. Will Mikko Rantanen, who's been quiet this series, but at the same time, at one point we said he was the Michael Jordan on skates in these playoffs.
I did not say that.
Will he score 2 goals?
I don't think he will. No, I really do think that Edmonton's going to bring in Ekholm. I think once Ekholm gets in, this team is in major trouble. They've been talking about it all time on Sportsnet that Edmonton's done a fantastic job of really making this Dallas team not really get a lot of chances And they've been doing this without their top defenseman. And now Mikko Rantanen enters the fray here. He's jumping in the swimming pool, about to do his laps. I think this team's in trouble once Mikko Rantanen gets here. I think Stuart Skinner's confident. I think this team is confident. I don't think Mikko Rantanen will score even one goal in the next game.
Ooh.
So I will give you an answer on a prop then, because Lane, I am disagreeing with you. Since I said Dallas is going to win, I think Mikko Rantanen has to have a big game, and he is going to manage to score 2, maybe even 3. He has been quiet for too long. And again, I don't think players who are this good can stay off the score sheet forever. Like, they have to get going again. Like, we look at kind of what we said about McDavid and Draisaitl. Oh, yeah, they're putting up points, but they were kind of quiet. And then the last couple games, they have been absolutely electric. And I think Mikko Rantanen could end up doing the same. But, of course, we still have Carolina versus Florida, which Game 5 is coming up. Who wins Game 5 between Florida and Carolina? Chazzy, I'm going to start with you again. Who wins Game 5?
Game 5, I might actually give this one to Carolina if they play the same that they did tonight. So I'm going to give it to Carolina because I did say Carolina originally. So
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I can't disagree with you there. I think Carolina, they really showed what they can do. So, Mr. Dashing, the Dashinator 3.0, you had an update. Congratulations. Will Carolina win a game at home in the Eastern Conference Finals? They have not won a game at home in a very, very long time in these conference finals. I believe last time they did was when they beat the Leafs in the Eastern Conference Finals. There's a little fun, depressing fact. So what's your thoughts on this? Do you think Carolina gets Game 5, or does Florida just put this to bed and have a nap?
Have you guys not learned anything? Florida likes to mess with you. They're just making them get back on the plane just to embarrass them, just like they did Toronto. This seems like they just want them to get on the plane, get excited, get their luggage back there, make them go walk into the arena so they can embarrass them and then make fun of them at the press conference. We all know what Florida's up to. This seems I'm not worried at all. I know they didn't play their best game, but I don't think they even played that bad. You know, they still had a really good chance to win that game. I think Florida, it's really hard to win 4 straight. You know, really hard to see that. I don't think Florida's even gonna. I think this is over. I think they're gonna come back. Bobrovsky will get back on it. They'll win it, and then they'll tell them how hard the pressure is and how hard the Eastern Conference and just make fun of them and make a bunch of jokes, and then the Carolina fans will have to cry the next morning just like we did.
Oh boy.
But now let's get into some of the custom props because we know Zane Stricker's part is about some custom props. And I want to start with Dan this time. Dan, you talked about how you thought Taylor Hall was going to be a real difference maker for the Carolina Hurricanes, and he's been a little quiet. Unlike you, who's a very loud man. But do you think Taylor Hall scores a goal?
I do. He's been quiet this series, but he's been playing good overall these playoffs and even at the end of the season since Carolina has gotten him. And I think when we Carolina, we signed Taylor Hall, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, we were in talks. I don't know.
Yes, they did.
I thought so. So I think Taylor Hall wants to prove that his contract is worth what it is because he's been bouncing around the league a little bit. Now, he only has 6 points in 14 playoff games, but he hasn't had a point in this 3 games. So before that, it was 11 points. 6 points in 11 games, which is almost half a point a game, right? So it's pretty good for a third-line player. And he has that veteran presence, which on a young Carolina team is very important. So I think he will get a goal.
I actually think Taylor Hall for a third liner, I think he's been quite good.
I agree. I would be happy if the Leafs got him. Let's put it that way.
I think he has been a good piece for Carolina. Was it enough? Time will tell. Now, Lane, you talked about how you're not worried about Florida. So I want to ask you this question. Bobrovsky has been playing very well in this series. Yes, they lost 1-0 in Game 3, but he allowed 1 goal on around 27 shots. Can't really blame the netminder.
Right.
Does Bobrovsky get at least 30 saves?
30 saves, I don't think so, because I don't think Carolina's going to take that many shots. I think Carolina's going to play very kind of cautious in this next game. As you mentioned, if they lose, their season's over. So I don't think they're going to go blazing guns to the wall trying to take every shot they can. I think they're going to play a lot more cautious in front of their home crowd and try not to let Florida get up in this game because I feel like once you let Florida get into this game, if they are going to make these momentous comebacks that we were talking about, they're going to have to make sure that Florida doesn't get their confidence back, especially in their home barn here, where they have struggled in the Eastern Conference Final and didn't win it all against Florida so far. So I don't think it'll be a 30 save night for Bobrovsky. I think they'll try to keep it more low event so that they can shock Bobrovsky and maybe sneak one by him. So no.
I don't know if sneaking one by Bobrovsky and shocking him really works. And I actually think Carolina will be much more aggressive in this game because I think Carolina, if they're going to go down, they're going to go down swinging. But again, time will tell. Maybe, Lane, you will become the self-proclaimed sports analyst. Now, Chazzy, I believe you're still on the 5.0 update here because I don't see any new blue light blimping around. But this question is for you. Frederik Andersen has been playing much better in that last game, right? He got a shutout. And usually when he gets a day of rest, he seems to play a lot better. So does Frederik Andersen allow 3 goals or less in this matchup?
If they're going to win the game, he's going to have to. So he's going to give the home crowd fans their first conference final win, I guess, and take this to game 6. But he will let in less than 3 goals.
Wow.
You know, I will. This is a prop I will answer on, and I absolutely agree with you, Craig. Like, I think Andersen will allow less than 3. And I think he has to. He looked really sharp in that last game. And you know what? As much as Chepekov did look phenomenal in that game, in the game 3, maybe Andersen just needed an extra day of rest. And now that he's got that rest, which is the same thing that happened in the Washington series, the Devils series. Andersen got hurt when he got ran over. Chepekov came in the next game. And then after that, Andersen was able to really run with it for a while. So I think that's very possible.
Because Andersen's getting up there in age, right? He hasn't played much the last few years. So maybe he needs
No, he's had a lot of health issues that's kept him off the ice. But, I mean, if he can play the way he's played these playoffs for the next couple games, they still got a shot. But I want to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs. And Leafs Talk is one of my favorite segments to do because, well, number one, Lane's rants are legendary. Dan loves to blame backup goaltending for why over $40 million in players can't score. And Chazzy just loves to sip the milk and listen to the tea. But I was watching something on Facebook from, I don't remember the name of the show we were watching, but I'm sure it was a good show. And
was it the poster to say something like Hyman has more goals in the playoffs than the core forward?
Now, mind you, that stat was inaccurate. It's more than Matthews, Marner, and Tavares. If you combine Matthews, Marner, and Nylander, they have 2 more goals, which is still pathetic. But it was comparing Marner to Jonathan Huberdeau, saying that Jonathan Huberdeau was in the perfect situation in Florida, playing with Barkov and Reinhart, which was why he put up a redonkulous amount of points. You could argue Mitch Marner is in the perfect situation in Toronto, getting to play with Austin Matthews and Matthew Nyes, and on the top power play of Nyes, Nylander, Tavares, and Matthews. So, and if and when Marner signs somewhere else, although I know, Lane, you might be thinking something different about that front, could Mitch Marner's production drop significantly? I do wonder if it does. I don't know if it's significantly the way Huberdeau dropped down to barely being a point every 2 games. I could see Marner dropping down to 70 points. No. I really could, depending on where he. If you go to Chicago, who the hell is he passing to?
Connor Bedard.
Bedard is also a playmaker. So you're going to have 2 playmakers and Nick Foligno. Who the hell is going to score?
You go pick up a Patty Kane.
Honestly, I don't think Patrick Kane is going to want to go back to Chicago. As much as I said, I think it'd be great, unless they're willing to throw way too much money at Brock Besser.
Well, Huberdeau had a better year this year.
A better year this year. It wasn't even a point per game. Like, yeah, it was better this year. I thought it was his best year as a Flame. And same with Nazem Kadri, right? Nazem Kadri scored the most goals he scored his entire career. But the points were down because, I mean, think about Nazem Kadri before was playing with Nathan McKinnon.
Right, exactly.
So I'm just curious, do you guys think I'm out to lunch agreeing with that take? Because I think depending on where Marner goes, like if he goes to Montreal and he plays with Cole Caulfield, he might put up more points than Nick Suzuki. But if he goes to like a team like Chicago with no one that can score, I don't know, but what's your guys' thoughts?
Who wants to go first? Because I have.
I'll go.
All I will say is you will miss him. That's it.
Well, Chazzy's just thinking we're going to put Marner on the milk cartons. But Dan, go ahead.
I do agree. Huberdeau really sucks, and I call that.
That's not what I was saying at all.
I'll call it when this trade happened, right? He had 115 points in Florida. I said, there's no way he's getting near that in Calgary. I think Barkov. I said to say Huberdeau could be probably is a nice person. I never met him. I don't know, but
he's a character player.
Yeah, so I said to say he sucks. So I am kind of not thinking straight. But Barkov is a great hockey player. I think Barkov's probably the most underrated player in the league. I think he's like a Finnish Sidney Crosby. I think he's that good. And have Sam Reinhart who scored the 50 goals or whatever. He was an underrated player too before he came to Florida. Right now, you look at Mitch Marner. You say it's a perfect situation. Is it really that perfect? Yeah, I get Captain Underpants at 70 goals. Well, 69. He couldn't even get a 70. He couldn't do that either.
Great number, by the way.
What? Never good number. Yeah, exactly. But you look at it this year, Captain Underpants was supposedly injured, and he had a really bad year. Matthew Knives, as incredible as he is a sophomore rookie. And with those two things in play, Marner still got over 100 points. When you look at Marner in the past, okay, yeah, he's played with Captain Underpants. But besides that, he's also played with John Tavares, is getting older and older. Michael Bunting, who is not that good at players, one of Doofus's leftovers. Zach Hyman, who's probably the most overrated 50-goal scorer in history. And I don't know who else. Like Bertuzzi at one point, okay? He had played with Bertuzzi. He's maybe a 20-goal scorer at best. And Connor Brown, who I love, but he's more of a role player, right? So when you look at Marner and the hit in the past, he's always put up around 90 points, and I don't think the players he played with are 100% ideal. I do think his production will go down a little bit, but I still see him being around 82, 85 points on a worse team.
But here's my point about Mitch Marner, and I have some stats here to back it up, to back this up. 36 of his points were on the power play.
Mm-hmm.
So on a power play, playing with Nylander, Tavares, Matthews, and Nyes, or Morgan Riley and take
probably the most inconsistent power play in the league.
It doesn't matter. He still put up 36 of those points. Now, you are putting into Matthew Nyes' 29 goals. It was either 20 or 18 of those goals were assisted by Mitch Marner. Mm-hmm. You look at Matthews' 30-something goals, and it was the mid-20s that were assisted again by Marner. You're starting to add these points up, and it's starting to look like, there is a legitimate chance that Marner's production really goes down. People are saying, well, if he goes to Chicago, it's good to play with Connor Bedard. Well, that's fantastic, but Connor Bedard is also a playmaker. And then you put him with a guy like Nick Foligno, and I could see Lane here. He's just like the Marner jersey. No. But I just feel like, no, there's something that's got to give here with Mitch Marner. And out of the 30 goals, only 4 of them were game winners he got this year. Only 2 of them were overtime goals. I don't know. I honestly could see Mitch Marner's production tailoring off. I'm not saying he's a bad player, and I do feel Toronto will have a hard time replacing a guy that, has consistently put up a point per game season. You look at his past in Toronto, right? Like 102 points last year, 85 points in 69 games the year before, 99 points in 80 games the year before, 97 points in 72 games the year before, and so on and so forth. Marner has been a point per game in every season except 2 his entire career as a Toronto Maple Leaf. I'm not saying it's not impressive. but he's been doing it playing with the exact same player in Austin Matthews his entire career. So this will be legitimately interesting to see if this happens. Who truly was the superstar? Was it Mitch Marner or was it Austin Matthews? Because there's a very good chance one of their numbers go down. But Lane, you were telling us off camera, and I really, no offense, Lane, I really hope you're wrong, that the Leafs might be circling back to the man that people literally wanted to buy their jerseys just to burn them.
You might be seeing this again. You might. I hate to say it, folks. You might be seeing this again. And I was pretty avid, and after Game 5, I don't want to see this and this number ever go on the Scotiabank ice. But as of today, Elliot Friedman has been reporting that Mitch Marner and the Leafs are not. The story might not be over, as the Leafs are going to give it one last crack at Mitch Marner and see if they can get a deal done before July 1st. And going on to what Jacob said, I feel like he's going to put the circus book up. I'm waiting for him to hold it because I feel like I'm going to get it here. But I could actually, and I can't believe I'm saying this, and it's going to pain me more to say this, and it's cut the words coming out of my mouth. I think Mitch Marner might get more points, and I'll tell you why. I know I'm saying that, and I can't believe I'm saying.
Never mind, just getting the circus book. I'm reading the circus book.
So I'll tell you why I say that. Because I think Mitch Marner really needs to get away from Toronto, and I'm being serious. Like, I think he needs to get away from the pressure of being the kid in Toronto. I think once he gets out of here, goes to a nice sunshine state, gets to go to the beach every day, gets to play with players that actually have some heart and some soul, I could see his numbers increasing. I could see him have a 106-point season. Because I look at his season, right? He played 81 games with 27 goals, 75 assists, and 102 points. And mind you, Austin Matthews was not that great this year. Right. You want to talk about how great Austin Matthews is? He was pretty much 70% all season and missed a chunk of games. He was not the Austin Matthews, the 69 goal flasher, dasher, running around, sniping left and right. Mitch Marner, a lot of the times, was playing on a line of was not playing with the top guys that he's used to playing. He was playing
John
with
Tavares and Matthew Nyes. I'm sorry, those are still top guys. Tavares had 37 goals this year.
Yeah, but Connor Bedard could get back to. I feel you put him with Connor Bedard, him and Connor Bedard could run the show. I don't think he's Jonathan Huberdeau because I look at his points here. You look 102 and 81, 85 and 69, 99 and 80, 97 and 72. The thing about Jonathan Huberdeau is he only did it once. Huberdeau only had one season where he really went off and did this unbelievable number where him and I forget, it was him, Gaudreau, and Monahan had this unreal season where they were the best line in NHL on any given night, and you couldn't touch them even if you had kryptonite. You couldn't beat them, right? So it's not like Huberdeau had these seasons where he wasn't a point player, where he was always getting more points in games he's playing, where he was a star every night, right? He only had that one real breakout season, and that's why I think Calgary traded him. For Florida, sorry. That's why I think Florida traded him, because they realized that he couldn't do it again. Right. That's why they went and got Matthew Tkachuk, because they saw the value in what Huberdeau had did in that season and said, there's no way he's recreating that. Let's dump him and get a superstar back. When it's Mitch Marner we're talking about, and again, I know I'm frustrated with this guy, and I know I said some pretty nasty things about this guy, and a lot of it still stands. But at the end of the day, he is a talented player. I think the pressure, I think the market here, I think he's past it. I think it's time to move on. I said that I don't agree with this whole kicking the tires. I think even for the Leafs, I don't need to. I don't know if to go in Space Mountain a 15th time. You've gone on it enough. You've seen what's happening here. It's not going to work here. The pressure's too much. The fans will get on him. He'll cry. He'll get emotional. It's not a good fit here anymore. But I think if he goes to another team, I think he could still get 106 points. I do.
Now, I do want to bring up something that no one else seems to bring up on the Huberdeau for Tkachuk trade. Is it wasn't a 1v1 trade. It was Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar for Matthew Tkachuk. So everyone goes on that was a terrible trade for Calgary, and I disagree 100%. I think Mackenzie Weegar was a huge part for their defense. You had a guy in Matthew Tkachuk who blatantly said, I am not re-signing. And you had a team in Calgary that you knew was not a Stanley Cup contender because you just lost Johnny Gaudreau for absolutely nothing. Calgary made the right move there. And Toronto reportedly speculated, might be true, might not be. And my hair's a mess because I just got very frustrated there. But they apparently offered Mitch Marner the biggest contract in Toronto Maple Leaf history.
I've seen that.
Which is probably, well, Matthews is 12.5. It's probably 13. And I'm sorry, but this guy is not like a team like Chicago. I get it. You're desperate. Or a team like Utah. You're desperately trying to find the missing piece. Actually, he'd be a great fit in Utah of him and Clayton Keller. That would be a lot of fun.
Clayton Keller and
I agree with you, Chazzy, when you say you are getting Toronto will miss him, and you're getting a very good player. But at the end of the day, the Leafs can't keep kicking the same tire, as Lane said. But
I find it comical because you guys said conference finals are bust, and now I don't know. Now you guys want everybody to stay.
No, and that's the thing. I actually don't. I actually would, unless I'm still even 50-50 at $5 million if I would even sign John Tavares back or not. And I get he's worth it on paper with his stats, but I think there's a leadership problem in Toronto.
I'm going
to use that money instead and sign Matthew Nyes to that $7 million over 3 that's rumored to be true.
Yeah.
And to me, that is just.
So you get Nyes at 7, you sign Marner back, so JT's gone?
No,
and nobody
Marner.
else comes in?
I don't want Marner back on this team. He is a good player. I agree he is a good player. But bringing him back is setting the statement, we're fine if going out to the second round again. We don't mind. In fact, we encourage it. It's a lot of work to keep picking up the jerseys outside of the rink. Let's just keep it up. But Dan, it looked like you wanted to say something so badly you were going to jump through the screen. So what is your thought, Mr. Moore?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I agree with Lane with everything he said. Everything he says makes a lot of sense. However, I just want to add something to his point. When the Leafs are talking signing and everything, I don't think they have the intentions of signing him to keep him. I called it since the Leafs lost the second round. I think they're going to try to sign Marner to a contract and then trade him at the draft. And the reason why a team will do that is I got thinking, if Marner hits open market free agency, he's probably going to get $14 million, as ridiculous as that is, right? So if you look at a team like Toronto and they're like, okay, we can sign Marner for $12 million. Does say, and then a team that was willing, like Chicago, a team that was willing to give him 14 on July 1st, they might give up a first-round draft pick in order to save that $2 million in cap space to Toronto at the draft. And then worst-case scenario, if you sign him and it doesn't work out for a trade at the draft, you have him in the season. He'll get his 100 points again. You can finish high in the season, and then at trade deadline, you trade him then. But I agree with Chazzy. Marner, as much as I don't like him, he's too good of a player to lose for nothing.
No, he's not.
When you see the Leafs having one more kick at the can, I don't think we're planning on keeping Marner long term. I think we're trying to think, how can we flip him? How can we sign him and trade him?
Okay, we need to disinfect this idea right out of the chat here, boys, with the Lysol. And Dan, I get what you're saying, and if no trade clauses didn't exist, then yeah, but there's no way Marner is signing in Toronto without a phono move. That's not happening. So if you sign Marner to a phono move, and he's going to want more than 1 year, he's probably going to want 6 or 7 bare minimum. You need a change, and the change can't be we're going to get rid of Scott Lawton and bring in Connor Brown. That can't be the change.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
It has to be something big. And everyone here, even though I feel like Lane would have said this, even though he wasn't with us yet. He was alive. He's doing very well. He's doing even better now that he's abandoned on the Streakers Island. But you're looking at the Leafs saying they needed change. We all said conference finals or bust, which means the change has to happen. And Marner needs to be on the way out. And I get why some fans want him to stay. He's a talented player with a lot of upside, and he is a very good player. But he's a player that needs to go. But Lane, you have a question for the Chazzy 5.0 update pending.
I do. So he was just talking about conference finals or bust. And I think this is why this is going around. And I believe me, it makes me even sick to my stomach to even talk about this, but we have to ask the question. So I believe this rumor is starting because they're seeing how this series is going, this whole Carolina, Florida. And now the belief is that, well, we got this far and look at Carolina. It looks like they're getting blown out of the water. So if it was us in this situation, we should really be in the third round. And I know I was making the same face Jacob is making, but I want to ask Chazzy because he's the non-Leaf fan in the room. Chazzy, from an outside perspective, putting the passion away, should we be looking at what happened in the second round as a success because we're the only team that really has pushed Florida? Or are we right to me and Jacob to be like, oh no, I don't want this. Get this thought. Get me Lysol. I want to drink the Lysol.
Well, hearing it pretty much almost all season on the island, and pretty much we start each show with the blue and white. You guys just need a change. I think it's just the change, and I think, like you guys said, the amount of money you're going to spend on one player, you could bring in a couple character players around that 6-7 that could make an impact and get you over the hump to get you into those conference finals and then roll the dice if you're in the finals or not. So I don't know, and then you're later three, I don't know what 3 weeks has been 2 weeks ago. You're like, yeah, it was just, I think you guys just need an emotional break up this, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, core 4 or core 3, whatever, bring some fresh blood in and see what else you guys can do. But
and I think the biggest point to that is we all said conference finals are bust. And at the end of the day, if you can't beat Florida and you're in the Atlantic, you're not getting to the dance, right? So you have to find a way to beat. And I'll be honest, I don't think this is necessarily Mitch Marner's the problem. I think it's that there's a change that needs to happen and Marner has an expiring contract. Like, I don't know if all 4 core players had a contract expiring, if Marner would be the guy you wouldn't re-sign. Actually, not for today because we've spent a lot of time on this topic already. But that would be an interesting question to look at. If all 4 guys were expiring, who would you move? But
and also don't forget, you guys almost, I don't know, that one overtime in that Sens game, you guys were on the brink of potentially losing to the Sens in the first round. So
I know
exactly, yeah.
The chemistry, you've seen the reactions. You know there's a leadership issue in there, and you just need to mix it up.
100%.
I personally couldn't give 2 hoots that we lost to Florida in 7 or 4, or if we showed up or if we didn't show up. And another big point is Game 5 and 7 were a complete atrocity and a complete joke. And you need players like Sam Bennett. You need players like Sam Bennett to fix that problem. Now, Sam Bennett, Mr. More for Your Money, thinks he's only worth 6.5 million. I'm telling you, you are not getting Sam Bennett on open market for 6.
Not now.
You are probably spending between 8 million to 10 million to bring in his services.
He's getting big payways.
He is, and it's well deserved. Because you really think about it, there are not a lot of players that do what Sam Bennett does.
You got 50 points in the season, mind you. So you're getting a 50-point, get a $10 million.
I don't care. But here's the thing. Florida did not win their division. And they're clearly the best team in the East. So I don't think Toronto was looking for season success. They're looking for playoff success. And Sam Bennett has been one of the best players in the Panthers this entire playoff run. He's showing why he's worth the big bucks. Like, Dan, I get in a perfect world, sure, sign him at 6.5. But with the way it's not happening. Now, the more interesting thing is some people have speculated Toronto will let Marner walk, not do that much this offseason because next offseason a guy like Connor McDavid is becoming a free agent. I'll be honest, I think that is one of the most dumbest takes I have ever heard. But I just wanted to bring this up. Connor McDavid is not leaving Edmonton unless Edmonton decides to relocate to Arizona, and McDavid does not want a snake coming out of his toilet. Yeah. And he's not leaving Edmonton. Why would you leave a team that keeps going to the conference finals and Stanley Cup finals and is dominant? So that is not happening. But
built for the playoffs.
It's looking like potentially Matthew Knies might be signing here for 3 years over $7 million. I would be very happy with Knies at that number. A 3-year bridge deal at 7, I think, is reasonable because I think at open market, if Bennett can get 10, Matty Knies can get 8.5. And you have to just look at what the market is being. And Dan is looking like his eyes are going to fall on his head. He's so disgusted by these numbers. But at the end of the day, these are the numbers that the players are going to be worth. But you guys might be wondering, well, couldn't this whole topic be a show? It will be a live show. We haven't quite picked a date yet. We'll send out those save the date cards through Dashco mailing service which is basically just us making a post with Lane's beautiful face in it. But we will make a post about what day and time that episode will be. But I think it's time to move on to another
one comment before we move on.
So no, you're pulling at Dan.
So Lane, you think your Leafs were made for the playoffs? Like this is the best playoff version of your Leafs you could put together?
No, I don't think so. I think there could be better. I think they should have put Austin Matthews on LTIR and tried to bring in a bigger name than Scott Laughton with their first round draft pick. I don't at all think that.
So I think
they made a mistake. I think you had to do what the Florida Panthers did. Like I understand what we talked about before, about how playing through the injury and sitting through the injury really wouldn't have made a difference. But do what everybody else does. Just say he's on LTIR until May, even if he doesn't get better or worse. I don't care. Find a way to put him on LTIR like everybody else does and bring in a bigger name than Scott Laughton and then bring Matthews back in the playoffs. And maybe you get, instead of an 80% Matthews, maybe you get an 82% Matthews. I don't know. Maybe it's the same. Maybe it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, I just don't agree how I saw Florida literally put Matthew Tkachuk on LTIR for similar same reasons, where he was kind of in the same boat where like he could have played, but he probably shouldn't be playing, and he didn't. They were in similar boats, right? And you saw the Florida Panthers, and I'm not saying they're tampering, but I guess I am saying that. But they put him on LTIR. Vegas puts Mark Stone on LTIR and comes back. Evander Kane got accused of being on LTIR for no reason and coming back. So if all these teams are going to do it, why not you do it? Put Austin. You didn't need Austin Matthews. He's been 80%. You had the playoffs locked in February. You could have easily just said, well, we don't know. He's not feeling good for the next 2 months and 3 days. And you could have made a crazy trade. You get a bigger name. Maybe you bring in Brad Marchand. Maybe you find a name on that was on the trade bait. Maybe bring in a Mikael Granlund or something, someone who's a little bit bigger, who has more production. And then you can bring Matthews back for the playoffs. I don't agree with what they did, and I actually think that Treliving and the coach Berube are a little bit to blame for playing Austin Matthews, trying to win a division, when in this whole playoffs, where are the division winners? Where are they? They've gone home. There's none of them left.
That is a good point. Like, there are no division winners left. That was something we talked about before. But I do think Toronto, everyone kept saying, well, they can't get through because they don't have home ice. So I get why they went for the division. I agree it didn't work out as planned. I still think Brad Treliving and Craig Berube are for the job. And I think it was also because their hands were tied. They talked about before how Kyle Dubas almost pulled the trigger to bring in Marc-Andre Fleury and move on from Jack Campbell in the 21-22 season when Campbell really struggled in the playoffs. If you have Marc-Andre Fleury that run, who knows what happens.
Yeah,
the runs, the Toronto Blue Jays can't seem to score them to save their life. Yes, they won last night, but I still want to talk about that series against the Rays, and I thought it was absolutely pathetic. You lost 3-1, 3-1, 13-0. You scored 2 runs in 3 games, and you were outscored 19-2. Like, that's just unacceptable. And sure, you won 2-1 against the Rangers. That's great. But that still means you have scored 4 runs in your last 5 games. And I don't get it. They played so well against the Padres. They won 3-0, 14-0, and then a barn burner 7-6 in extra innings. I'm like, okay, this team is finally turning the clock. And then it's just kidding. We still suck. And it is so bloody frustrating with this team. I don't understand how Schneider still has a job, like their coach.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I really don't get it. And Dan, you have been so confident about this Blue Jay team this year, saying they were going to get to 98 wins. They were going to get to 98 wins. As much as I never thought they were going to get to 98, I thought they maybe could hit I-80s after that series against the Padres. And yeah, you got the win against the Rangers. But how disappointed were you with the way they played against the Rays and just basically didn't show up?
I'm upset. It really sucks to see, you know. Like, I don't know what's wrong with the Jays. I was expecting more out of Bullset. You know, his contract year, because I think he wants the big money like Gladdy. I called it here on the island that the Gladdy deal would get done. It got done. I thought after all the drama, he would start playing better. And you see little glimpses and hopes of the Jays, and then it goes right back down way again for next game, right? So I think it's good they got a win against Tampa, being in their division, and he wins again in division is good. Is definitely a victory. And I've been calling it for a while now. I think we should fire John Snyder, the manager there. I think he's done a whole.
Now, my bigger question is, Dan, when you mentioned Bo Bichette, at this point, I'm not even re-signing him.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if the Jays continue to suck. And Craig, you look really surprised by my take, or maybe you just need to use the washroom or need some milk.
Oh, I just had an itch.
You were scratchy, but I'm still going to ask you anyways. Would you sign Bo Bichette at this point, or would you trade him before trade deadline if you're the Jays? Because this season has just not gone well, and for once, your division wasn't that strong so far.
Right.
Oh, I think you could potentially move on from him. You got other players that can play that role.
Well, and that's the thing. Everyone goes
and
on.
He's going to want, what, 300 million or something like that?
Well, that's the thing. Like, you can find other guys that can catch a damn ball for a lot cheaper who can play that second base or shortstop spot who can do it. The reason why you're paying Bichette so much was because he was a good hitter, too, and he just hasn't been. But it's been a very big disappointment here, and I am so bloody frustrated as a Jays fan, and I am going to take you through a story. And you think about back to the bat flip when they brought in Price and they had Batista and they had Donaldson and they had all these good players and they made it so close. Price wanted to stay. Donaldson wanted to stay. Batista wanted to stay. So all your core guys wanted to stay and you gave up. I really do feel they gave up on that core group 1 year too early. But they gave up on that core group. Oh, but we're going to get Vladdy Guerrero Jr. and we're going to get Bo Bichette and we're going to be this great, amazing team. And it's the future. It's brightness. It's going 88 miles an hour in a DeLorean, which I don't even know is possible. And apparently it's not possible for the Toronto Blue Jays if they're going to win multiple games in a row. I am so bloody frustrated with this damn group. Like, wake the hell up. I don't know if you need some caffeine, you need some Tylenol to get rid of the brain fog, you need to open up the door and get going. Lane is showing me a giant Gatorade bottle. Maybe they need Gatorade. I have no idea what this group needs, but they need something. And I think they need to make a major shakeup. We keep talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs need to make a major trade. The Toronto Maple Leafs need to make a major trade. The Toronto Blue Jays need to make a major trade. The Toronto Raptors made a major trade when they kept going on playoff runs, even though they were falling slightly short. The Toronto Blue Jays can't even get to the playoffs. And Lane, maybe they do need that Gatorade, which we are not sponsored by Gatorade, by the way. But Gatorade, if you would like to sponsor us, give me a call at 1-800-streakers.net. That's not even a phone number. It's a website and a phone number combined. That is how frustrating with the Toronto Blue Jays. They don't excel. I agree, Lane. They do not excel. This team, they don't even know how to use Microsoft Excel. They still don't even realize they could do it on Google Docs. This team just doesn't get it. So they need to wake up, smell the coffee, put 10 shots of espresso in, and either get on a massive winning streak or trade Santander because he has been absolutely garbage in this group.
Didn't you just sign him to a big deal?
He did, yep.
Move on from a guy like Bassett. I'm sorry, that last outing from Bassett was absolutely pathetic. This team just doesn't give two bleeps. And I'm sick and tired of watching this lazy team with a coach that all he does is talk to the media, says the F word, and everyone thinks he's cool. Yeah, Paul Maurice could talk about shotgun and beers and everybody loves him, but Paul Maurice wins. He
That's
wins.
Right. Yeah.
So we can talk about shotgunning beers in a church, which was one of the weirdest quotes I've ever heard. Think about that on a Tuesday. But the Blue Jay team, they just suck.
They do.
They suck the life out of you. I feel so bad for these fans that are packing the Sky Dome, which they can't even call the Sky Dome anymore. And they just think, oh, this team's going to do it. They have all this young talent, and they suck. At least the Toronto Maple Leafs win some games in the regular season, and we can hear a goal song. The Jays can't even score damn runs. No. We have had 4 runs in 4 games. That is 1 run per game. That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's no and, ifs, or buts. It is insane. Fire the coach. Fire the GM. Trade Bichette. And blow this sucker up.
I got a question.
It has to change. Lane, what the hell is your question? Have a lovely day.
And I want to hear from Jacob from this. And I can't believe I'm saying it. I know they've re-signed them. Was signing Vladdy to that contract a mistake? I still think honestly, like no. I like the guy, I like the kid, but he's too inconsistent for me. Like one game he's good, one game he's
We're only 2 months in the season, people.
I don't care. With Vladdy Guerrero Jr., you either should have signed him before the season started or let the season play out.
Yeah.
Because if you let it play out right now, again, you're stuck with him. No one else wants him at that salary.
You can't even trade him. He's got literally no trade.
Well, that's what I mean. You're stuck with him at this point. At least
you're keeping him. He's not going anywhere.
At least before you had options. We look at the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Winnipeg Jets. Winnipeg has no options. The Toronto Maple Leafs have so many options that we can talk about an hour of whether they should keep the water boy. And you look at the Blue Jays, they are like the only option they have to make a major shakeup. But I don't think you getting rid of the water boy is enough. I bet the water boy does an A-OK job. But you have to make a change if you're the Blue Jays if you can't pick it up. And I know we're talking 2 months. I say you certainly can't win a World Series in May, but you cannot make the playoffs in May. And
I don't know if it's
Dan, I think you have. I don't know what Kool-Aid you bought at the Sky Dome last time you were at a game with Mr. Dashing Dashko. You must have paid $37 for it. And there was some special cider in it. But why do you still have confidence in this group that clearly just doesn't understand the ball goes outside of the park, not into the opponent's glove?
Well, it's still all year in year, right? We're not even the end of May yet. But the one thing I wanted to say, though, I don't know if this is a baseball thing in general or just a Jays thing. But one problem, I think, is attitude. The Jays win 1 game, only hit 1 home run, and they act like they won the Super Bowl. It's like, oh, they put on a jacket, they do a dance, they high-five everyone, blah, blah, blah. If I'm the coach of the Jays now, I'm not high-fiving no one until we're over 500. Like, why are we celebrating here? The year's been a disaster, and a $500 million guy, $500 million guy gets a home run, everyone goes crazy. It's like, what the? So
now, unfortunately, Dan, I completely agree with you, but it's a baseball thing. I don't know why baseball players, when they're down 16-0 and they score a home run, they dance around like they're Jimmy Carter or just won the World Series. Like, I don't get it. But it's a baseball thing. But maybe the Blue Jays need to change that attitude because, let's be honest, the Vladdy Guerrero, Bo Bichette era has been the era of mediocrity.
Well, when you go out and spend $12 million on one strikeout for Max Scherzer right now, that has seen a couple innings. Like, is there any update on when he's coming back? Supposedly he might be coming back.
Yeah, but you know what? Okay, but I am going to bring up the exact same point I made to Dan about Joseph Wall. You can't score. So we need a pitcher.
Yeah.
We can't. I am dehydrated. Can you give me a sandbox? That is basically what you're saying. Sure, a sandbox might be nice to have. I can play with the big giant turtle that every kid had who was a millennial when they drank from the hose.
Well, if you get a Max Scherzer on the mound,
how does that fix your batting?
Your bats are going to come alive.
Fix your bat? No, but okay, Chazzy, your car needs new brakes, so I'm going to take you to a windshield shop.
If you're taking me to a good one and everybody there that's going to do a good job. Everybody's going to
You
do
have
what
the
they need
nice
to do.
windshield,
Done.
but you can't stop.
No, but
You have the best pitching. Okay, everyone goes on the defense wins championships. How do you win a game without scoring a run?
no, but if you have a Max Scherzer on the net on the mound, and your lineup sees that, they're gonna hit some balls.
No, they won't. Because we have had so many games. We have had so many games of great pitching, and they still lose. Let's say they were losing a bunch
I'm
of
not
games.
saying if they're going to win or
9-7.
lose. They may hit the ball.
No, but Chazzy, let's say they were losing games 9-7 or 6-5 or whatever. I could totally get what you're saying. When you're being outscored at the rate the Jays are, their differential is absolutely terrible. And funny enough is they're mid-pack with runs allowed per game. They just can't score. And they can't seem to score in the right time. Like if
you leave a bunch of people stranded on bases too.
When you signed Vladdy into the season, you already, in my opinion, this is a write-off season. Like you got to.
I said I don't know why
the ship straight throughout the year. Learn what you need to going into next year because I don't know. You didn't do yourself anything.
They either should have signed Vladdy Guerrero Jr. before the season started, or let it play out so you have options. Like you look at the Toronto Blue Jays here, right? They only are scoring 207 runs per game, while allowing 233. The Boston Red Sox, who are worse than the Jays, are scoring more runs. They're allowing more runs, but they're scoring more runs. So, and you are looking, you're just this team just is bad. They suck on the road at 10-15. They're mediocre at home. They pretty much lose to any team that's over 500. And the Yankees are starting to pull away, winning 8 of their last 2.
Right.
Like I said, you can't win a World Series in May, but you can miss the playoffs in May. And like you just look here, like all the good teams are hitting. You look at the Detroit Tigers, they have an 81 run batter plus differential. The Jays are minus 26. The Jays are the second worst differential team in the AL. Okay, the Baltimore Orioles, who have only won 19 games, have only scored 2 less runs than the Blue Jays. That team is terrible.
Yeah.
Like, so I get, Chazzy, what you're saying. Okay, so maybe with the pitching, if you have Scherzer once a week, okay, maybe you've allowed 225 runs instead of 233. You still have a terrible differential. You still suck. Lane, you have a stat that I have no idea what it means. So by all means, you talk. I just wanted to rant. I got my rant out. I still think this Jays team is terrible, and I think they could end up falling below the Boston Red Sox and just becoming the joke of the AL.
So and this stat's not much better, and I think it just magnifies everything Jacob was saying. So for anyone who doesn't know what the stat is, it's RISP, which means runners in scoring positions, which means you have a player on first, second, primarily third base. And these are players that can score when they're on base or have a high likelihood of scoring. The Jays only have a 2 batting average of 246. 246. So only 24% of the time when they have a runner on second or third, they actually get a hit. So take that for. So I honestly,
that is so depressing.
I love you, Chazzy, but I kind of got to agree with my boy Jacob here. I don't think that Max Scherzer means a Billy darn difference. I don't think it matters because I don't think it matters because at the end of the day, if you got a guy on third with 0 outs and you can't get him home, Max Scherzer could go throw 59 strikeouts. If you can't get the runs, I don't care.
Well, yeah, we used to have Roy Halladay, West in Peace, right? And what Jacob said, we brought in that Price wanted to stay. But it seems like after Price, we haven't had that legendary pitcher.
I disagree with you. Pitching has not been a problem for Toronto this year.
I know it's not a problem.
Like Bissett's last game was terrible, and much as I said, like, look, he's got to give his head a shake. The Jays pitching has not been an issue. At 233 runs allowed, that's actually not complete hot garbage. It's not great.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying it's an issue. I'm just
they don't hit when they have to. They don't get They don't get hits when guys are on base.
But Dan, I do get what you're saying. Like they haven't had that. We talk about franchise goaltending in hockey. They haven't had a franchise starting pitcher probably since Roy Halladay or maybe years or Strome.
Why?
Right.
Well, Strome's another great example too, right?
Guy who wants to stay in Toronto, and Jay's like, nah, we want Boba shit.
I don't know.
Honestly, I think the biggest mistake, to be honest, boys, I don't know if any of you would agree with me. I think it was choosing Boba Shett over Marcus Semien.
Yeah.
I think
yeah.
When Marcus Semien was here, he was putting balls in that outfield. He was a huge hitter. He was a big producer for the Jays.
I forgot about him, but yeah.
Marcus Semien was one of the best hitters on that team in the year. I think, and you chose Boba Shett over. I would have chose, with how it was going, I would have chose Marcus Semien. And I think letting him go to the Rangers and having the success he's had, and now you're stuck with the Boba Shett and Vladdy Guerrero circus show, and now you're losing. Now you can't win. So have fun with it.
The good thing is, though, you know what? Maybe you're not stuck with Bichette. I mean, maybe they re-sign him, maybe they don't. I think right now it's a 50-50. But I want to move on to the Canadian Football League preseason. And Lane, you must have been feeling pretty good. Your Ticats beat my Argos. And I thought Bo Levi Mitchell and Kenny Lawler look like a very deadly combination together. You got a guy that's got a really good arm, and you have arguably the best 50-50 catcher in the Canadian Football League. So, Lane, how exciting was it to see that work the way it did? And how frustrating is it to see Tim White and Bo Levi Mitchell after a full season together? And I get this is just preseason, but still just not really connecting the way that I think these two should.
Well, I look at it differently. I just think that's why you brought in a guy like Kenny Lawler, right? Like you look at, he was targeted 7 times in the game with 5 catches. He only dropped 2 balls, 36 yards. He didn't get a touchdown in the game, but that's pretty good stats for preseason. And again, this is all preseason. Like, yeah, Tim White's pretty underwhelming game there. He was targeted 5 times for 2 catches, but I think Bo Levi Mitchell, you take that game, right? He's 13 for 23, 101 yards. And it was an improvement. Like we've always been talking about this team kind of having the struggles in the beginning of the year and trying to play catch up. And, you went toe to toe with a really good team in the Toronto Argonauts, even though it pains me to say that. They are a really good.
They are, yeah.
I hate to say it, but they are a really good team. They're a really good defensive team. They do things really well on the defensive end. And I think that you saw here in this preseason game that a Ticats team that has some motivation and some extra weapons. So, maybe if Tim White, you're not happy with how he played, but now you got Kenny Lawler and now Bo Levi Mitchell. He's got now 2 targets, which gives him a little bit more options to be the Bo Levi Mitchell from his olden days. And I still think that Bo Levi Mitchell can be a game changer if he can stay healthy and this team can give him the time, which I know I've talked about it. The Ticats have always had time with getting that quarterback time to make the plays. And if they can give him the time to make the plays, I think we might be seeing a deadly Ticats team, and I might be really happy CFL fan this year.
I do agree. I thought there were some promising things there, but I also want to bring it over to Toronto, and I thought Nick Arbuckle looked great. 10 for 14, 121 yards, averaging 8.6 yards per play. I thought Nick Arbuckle looked to be in midseason form.
Yeah.
Another guy I was really impressed with on Hamilton was a running back named Ward. 8 carries, 76 yards, and a touchdown with a carry of 45 yards. That kid's got some speed. And I think there's real competition between Greg Bell, Augustine, and Ward. Unfortunately for Hamilton, I mean, mind you, you might keep all 3 on the roster, actually. I thought all 3 of them looked great, but then you also have Litre, who you keep as your short yardage quarterback, who's a running back. So it kind of muddies the water there. And flipping back to Toronto, I thought this Merlin Williams guy, 8 carries, 53 yards, and a touchdown. I don't think he's going to make the Argo team because they're just absolutely stacked at the running back position. But I'll tell you one thing, if there's a player who might be picked up by someone else when the Argos drop him, if they don't keep him on the practice roster, I think there is a team like Saskatchewan who is desperately looking for a backup running back for AJ Ouellette, as he has not been able to stay healthy, or maybe Calgary, who is going to look for a backup running back, and they're going to be very interested in this player. But Dan, we have always had arguments about Cameron Dukes.
Yeah.
And I thought Dukes really struggled in this preseason game, to be honest. He did lead.
I think he did too.
But 1 for 6, 22 yards. I don't know how that equals out to a 3.7 average. I guess because they're counting in his misses to 0, but that's a weird way to do math.
Yeah.
But Dan, do you think Mr. Tucker Horn might have a shot at actually stealing the 3rd position from Dukes once Kelly's back? Horn went 16 for 21, 172 yards and a touchdown. Yeah, against some of the backups for the Ticats. But he actually looked very, very good. And from what I'm hearing, the Argos are very high on this kid.
Yeah, I can see why. He looked great in the preseason game. Also, Jacob and I went to a double blue game at Guelph University. And I thought he looked very good there too. So, Cameron Duke started last year well, going 3-2 over 500 when Kelly was injured as a starter. But then you had to put Arbuckle in because he kind of struggled at the halfway through the season. It hasn't really recovered since last year, I don't think. I think he still looks like he's struggling a little bit. And you look at teams, like I said, there's so many good quarterbacks out there, not enough teams. When you look at a team like Chazzy's Calgary Stampeders, for example, they don't really have a backup. Or, Vancouver of York, right? So maybe if we'll trade Duke for a defensive back or something, since our defense got a little shook up over the offseason. But we'll see what happens.
I don't see the Argos trading Dukes. I could see him potentially releasing him just if he continues to struggle. But Chazzy, you must have absolutely loved Vernon Adams Jr. just ripping it in that preseason game. By the way, he figures first 8 throws, let's just make them dimes. Right? He ended up going 9 for 12, 129 yards, averaging over 10 yards per completion. On top of that, hey, I'm also going to rush for 14 yards on 2 carries. And I'm going to get Dominic Rhymes to 81 yards, perfect 4 for 4 on the day. Like, I think Calgary has got to be ecstatic. Yes, Edmonton put out a lot of their backups, but that preseason game was 31-4 for Calgary. I think the Stamps have the real deal. And when you bring in a guy like Vernon Adams Jr., who can deliver the ball to Reggie Bangleton and Dominic Rhymes the way he did, this, I get it's preseason and maybe I'm overhyping it, but I was absolutely ecstatic watching that game thinking, oh man, Chazzy's got to be happier than, I don't know, a pig and poop, because this Calgary offense just looked unreal. So Chazzy, like, do you think now you're seeing why the Calgary Stampeders went out and said, we're going to pay Vernon Adams Jr. a lot of money in the Canadian Football League, and we're going to fix the quarterback problem, and maybe showing to the league that, hey, we're not a bad team. We just needed a quarterback better than Jake Mayer.
Oh, yeah. They'll put last year behind them, and it's a whole new green pastures in front of them. New turf, new everything. So,
yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that new turf too, eh? Because I think that new turf, I sounded way too Canadian there. About to go to Tim Hortons, bud. But you mentioned that new turf, and that new turf is going to be a big game changer for the Stampeders. Was listening to some interviews after that preseason game, and they all mentioned how it was great being on a new turf. They think it's going to avoid a lot of injuries. So big ups on Calgary. You went out and made the moves you needed to make. And between Vernon Adams Jr. and Dominic Rhymes, look out for this Stamps team. I'm going to call it right here. We haven't done our CFL preview show. We will do that closer to the start of the regular season. But I think Calgary could end up being the best team in the West.
Yeah,
I could see being better than Winnipeg, because I don't have as much confidence in Zach Collaros as some other people may do, or as other people might, although going into the preseason game, the last one against Saskatchewan, I mean, Collaros did his thing, right? Like, he's going to be able to quarterback, put up numbers, 93 yards, 10 of 13, long of 25. But for Saskatchewan, I'll be honest, Jake Mayer, 8 of 13 and an interception. He didn't look great. That's a little bit of a concern. Trevor Harris only went 3 for 8, but I'm not worried about Trevor Harris. The guy's a veteran, one of the most accurate quarterbacks in professional football. Because even when he played in the NFL briefly, was throwing well over 70%. This guy's a very accurate ball guy. Same with Cody Fajardo in Edmonton, which I know Trey Ford's a starter. We're probably going to see him next week, or I guess this week now. But it's an exciting time to be a CFL fan, and make sure you stay locked in with us because we will do a CFL preview show. And it's going to be lit, fam.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And you can play along with the CFL on the Streakers gaming app, which is pretty amazing. So definitely play along, challenge your friends, and see who is the best at the CFL.
It's going to be me. You can tell we're recording at 3:42 in the morning because I'm already singing some Backstreet Boys. But let's get into the NSYNC, whatever. They're in. How about their synced Backstreet? Combine the two boy bands.
Yeah.
But let's talk about. Oh, yeah, that actually sounds kind of gross. But let's talk about the Memorial Cup here. And I don't think we're surprised about the London Knights dominating.
I called it.
The Medicine Hat Tigers also at 2-0, looking very good, beating Rimouski 5-4 and then beating Moncton 3-1. Now, today is, I think, the game that will decide who gets like the most advantage going into the finals.
Yeah.
London versus the Medicine Hat Tigers is coming up. And the one thing I'm really excited about is the showdown between Gavin McKenna and Easton Cowan. And Dan, you really talked about how you felt Easton Cowan needed to step it up. Bry Pup talked about how Gavin McKenna is the best superstar in these playoffs. So, Dan, do you think Easton Cowan continues to step up the way he's playing, or do you think London could maybe follow him this one against Medicine Hat, which is a very good team?
I mean, Medicine Hat's a very good team. I really hope that Easton Cowan does continue to step it up for London Knights' sake, also to Toronto Maple Leafs' sake. But after watching Easton Cowan and World Juniors do absolutely nothing, I am a little concerned. So we'll see what happens.
Man, the World Juniors were so long ago. You got to get a new line, but it's just like I have a feeling one of these days Dan is gonna like drop his ice cream that he got from his bellhop, and he's gonna blame Joseph Wall and Easton But Chazzy, I want to ask you here, like, you know, I know you're more of a you've been watching the CHL for a long time, and I'll admit, as a Barry Coates fan, watching London was very frustrating. But could London really put a stranglehold on their legacy if they're able to take down Medicine Hat, put themselves in the best position to win the Memorial Cup? Or do you think Medicine Hat actually got a pretty good shot at dethroning this London team?
This was pretty much game one of game two if these two teams meet again?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess they could have the upper edge taking it, but it should be a good one.
And Lane,
it's too close to call. Like, I don't know what to expect out of this one.
But Lane, I see in the private chat, by the way, we're not sponsored by a private chat in StreamYard, but StreamYard, if you'd like to sponsor us, you're more than welcome to. Chazzy will give you a personal cardboard cutout of himself dressed as Brandon Fraser from The Mummy. But Lane, you're talking about how Medicine Hat's first line is just insane. So how big of a deal is it going to be for London to try to shut down that first line?
Well, yeah, Austin Elliott's going to have his work cut out for him here. You know, he's been a really strong goalie. You saw it in the OHL playoffs, and you're seeing it here. He's got a 145 goals against average with a 948 save percentage, but he's going up against probably the deadliest first line of all time right here with Ryder Ritchie, Gavin McKenna, and Oasis Weisblatt, who have 12 points combined, 4 points each. They're on that top line there. So this is, if you're talking about the London Knights and how good their goalie is, well, we're going to have to find out how good he is as of 7 p.m. tonight, because he's going up against a really deadly first line that's just firing on all cylinders here. You look at Gavin McKenna right now with 2 goals, Ryder Ritchie with 3 goals, and then Weisblatt, all 4 points, all of assists. So it's not getting any easier for them, and this is going to be a really tough task here for the London Knights and their goaltender tonight.
I'm going to say this here on the Streakers Island podcast. I think Medicine Hat actually takes down London in this game and gives London the harder road to the Memorial Cup final.
Yeah,
I think this Medicine Hat team is just very, very, very good. Personally, I think Gavin McKenna is one of the first prospects I've seen in a long time that could be that next superstar. And
the puppy was saying the next McDavid.
Honestly, with the way he could skate, yeah, I could see him being the next McDavid with his hands and his pure ability.
Pup knows how to pick from us, was her.
He is a very smart cookie. I feel like Bry Pup, if you described him as a cookie, he wouldn't just be one flavor. He'd be multiple flavors. Like a peanut butter chocolate chip with M&M sprinkles on top. Remember, though, guys, if you want to play along with the CHL, it is in the Streakers app. Best app you will ever find on a cell phone. Screw Angry Birds.
Yeah.
Who wants to be angry at birds anyways? I don't even get angry if someone flips me the bird. But we need to go away until Thursday.
Oh, do we want to mention something about the Minnesota Frost taking down their second championship in the PWHL tonight?
Chazzy, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
I think all four of those games went to overtime against the Ottawa Charge, but looks like the Frost took their second championship in a row. Congratulations, ladies.
Fun fact about that, actually, I was reading about that fourth line. That fourth line in that one game in that series is like a +10 or some crazy thing.
Talk about two evenly matched teams to go to I think it was 2-1 for a majority of that whole series. And just two evenly matched teams.
Also, too, big shout out to the PWHL. It is growing at a very rapid rate. Honestly, I'm really hoping to get to a PWHL game next year. I hear it's a lot of fun from what I've seen on TV. The atmosphere is absolutely incredible. I mean, talk about Toronto having too much of a corporate crowd. It's not a corporate crowd at a PWHL game in the GTA. But before we go MIA, Dan has something to say with his island mindset today.
Yeah, so, as you go through life, you meet amazing people and you learn amazing things. Fan of the program, GR86, is the winner of Curse Fest, who is helping us with our big surprise announcement we made at the beginning of the show. And one thing that he told me that I've learned from him is that you always have to stay neutral with people. Some people you're really going to like, and some people you're really going to hate. But instead of going from one into the other, it's good to stay neutral, because when you stay neutral, you can get you get to know a lot more people, you get a lot more things accomplished, and it's win-win for everyone. No one needs to put hate out there. So, if you're not a fan of someone, try to stay neutral with them and try to work something out for the best.
That is a phenomenal point, Dan. It's also great when your transmission blows, you put it neutral, you can push the car home.
That's right.
We did not get a chance to talk NBA playoffs, but for your NBA fans, don't you worry. We will talk about it on the Thursday episode of the Streakers Island podcast, powered by Streakers Gaming, not brought to you by Home Depot.
You only lose by 40 one night and then win by 2 the next. So.
Talk about a roller coaster ride. That has been the NBA playoffs. But it is time that we peace out like a Girl Scout. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining the Streakers Island podcast. If you're looking for more Streakers Island content, make sure you download the Streakers Gaming app and follow all the social medias. And until next time, I'm Jacob Moore, the self-proclaimed sports analyst. He's Mr. Moore for your money.
Woo!
No one's more dashing than Lane Dashing Dashko. And we got the man who puts the capital C, the capital E, and the capital E in CEO. Thank you very much, everyone. We will see you Thursday, maybe Wednesday for a post game with the Oilers. I got to talk to the boys. Got to see if the Island Motel has reservations available. But until then, see you later. Maybe I'll have a haircut by then. Okay, peace out.
Bye-bye.